Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Town Council meeting for March 6th. If you will please rise, and we will do the Pledge of Allegiance together. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, just as a point of comment, we have the Kelson Row item on the agenda this evening. The intention is that will remain tabled as we've scheduled a special meeting for tomorrow at 6 p.m. But anybody that would like to comment on it can do so tonight at public comments. I'd also like to make a motion to amend the agenda to move new business item A up after subcommittee reports.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Great. Okay, we're going to move on to public comment. This portion of the meeting is specifically set aside for comments from the public who are asked to limit their comments to 2 minutes. Any person interested in providing public comment should email publicmeetings@rockyhillct.gov. And will be provided with a link to attend the Zoom remote meeting and instructions on how to participate. And my microphone is actually working. Okay. Right? Public comment.
Hello.
Hello.
My name is Christian Olak. And this right here is my little sister, Maya.
Hi, Maya.
We live on Talbot Brook Road. Next year, I will be a senior in high school, and this will be my last year of public education. While my sister, Maya here, who you can't see, will be starting kindergarten, so that will be her first year of public education. Today, I am here for her to request that there will be SROs in all schools. In high school, we have an SRO that's always on duty. And I respectfully ask that my sister have the same protection I do. The world has changed since I entered kindergarten. Sandy Hook happened when I was in the first grade. And just like those kids were, I was the same age as them. My mom went to school with Anne Frank's and Grace's parents. She was 6. Maya right here just turned 5. Those students were my age at the time. They should be having their senior year right now, preparing for college, having fun with their friends, getting their license, thinking about prom. According to Education Weekly, as of February 15th, there have been 151 school shootings since 2018. I don't need to be an expert to tell you, that's a lot. It's a drastic amount. And bulletproof backpacks weren't a thing when I started going to school. I had to take a step back when I was playing with some friends online, and they're in Canada, and I had to explain to them what Alice drills were, and that we have to take precaution for shooters and stuff like that. And how do you think I felt when I had to explain to my little sister that she couldn't wear light-up shoes at school, preschool, because it's a safety risk? I shouldn't have to do that. That's just bad. The Alice Training Program, Connecticut's Police Chiefs Association, the Connecticut Police Union, and Rocky Hill Police Department have all highly recommended SROs. They are the experts. It isn't just about school shooters. SROs build community relationships with students. I see them every day, as well as everyone in the high school, and we're comfortable around them. We trust them, and we're more likely to report a crime to them than any other officers. We all understand the importance of officer response time. It's crucial, especially in situations such as mass shootings and stuff like that, which is why an officer in the building would highly improve those times. I would like to ask that my little sister have the same protection that I do. I'd like to thank you, Madam Mayor, and the members of Town Council for listening to me today. I respectfully request that you guys ask yourself 3 questions. If something were to happen in our school, God forbid, would you rather an officer be there on the scene immediately or have to wait for an officer to arrive? How do I explain to my sister that she will not have a full-time SRO and the same protection that I do? And can we ask ourselves, as a town, are we doing everything possible to keep our students safe? Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Charlie Wisnowski, 670 Old Main Street. Some thank yous may be in order if I understand the following. The tax abatement is now 9 years. You got back 50% of the 10th year. The town attorney, based on my last time here, I guess is now Morris Boria. Again, that's good news. Keep reducing the abatement. Your package has a draft agreement with a developer. So far as I know, Rocky Hill is not getting any park from the deal. I think you should let them use the land, but keep the land in the town's name for future use by the town. The commercial building 11, as I understand it, has no contractual date of completion. What are the tax abatement terms for the commercial portion? Same or different than the residential portion? The Weathersfield tax agreement, which I previously provided, condition 13, page 4, stated, developer agrees to waive its right to file a tax appeal for 7 years following the date of issuance of certificate of occupancy for the property. Your agreement should state a 9-year period. In the Kelson Road draft agreement, condition 4, page Roman numeral 7, C-6, there is a discussion about the appraised value. All parties should agree that this appraised value will be arrived at using a real estate tax-loaded capitalization rate. This means that the appraised value should reflect the increase in value for a property which has a lower contractual real estate obligation. The assessor will explain this. In my opinion, the town of Rocky Hill has not performed well in agreements with developers. Examples. On April 26, 2011, Rocky Hill entered into a land disposition agreement with Richard Vicino. Rocky Hill was to get services and improvements in the amount of approximately $600,000 in consideration of the land for Town Center West via CL&P. To my knowledge, this obligation is still outstanding to the town. Another example. Rocky Hill Estates, an unbuilt subdivision on Old Main Street, promised to improve access to Quarry Park. After litigation with the state of Connecticut, there was a draft settlement agreement for $75,000 for the park. The final signed agreement appears silent to the $75,000. What happened? Another example. The Foundry, or River's Edge, Michael Romano, acting for Leonard Thielen, had made representations about obligations for that development in Tulisano Park, which are not documented. The town paid $670,000 for demolition and environmental cleanup. A tax abatement proposal had been, or agreement had been entered into over 10 years ago. My point is that I urge you to do more better in representing the town's interest. In this case, when the value of Kelson Row is to be subject to paying taxes like the rest of us, there should be a clear expression of the method of appraisal. You're about to make an opportunity cost decision. You're about to agree to forego a revenue stream, a very large one for a very long time. This decision will significantly impact the welfare of the town for many years. I was early. I walked around. We have a community of people, you know this better than I, because you're involved in all the decisions, but we have a community of little people, people who are not really well off, people who have needs for health, safety, welfare, etc. We have schools, the senior center, the library, Parks and Rec, fire, police, human services, highways. We have other businesses that pay taxes, residents that will pay more because Belfonte is paying less, a lot less.
Less.
Give them less, tax us less. Let me decide how I want to spend my money. In the future, you're going to sit there and make decisions, and you're going to wish you only had a fraction of what Belfonte, a real estate developer, will get. But maybe we can't have that extra officer for Myra, and a lot of other little things. So for whatever reason this continues, you have to suffer getting me, and I have to suffer with the uncertainty of what's going on. But you seem to be going in the correct direction, and I know all of you have been involved in the community in a huge variety of ways, and you know everybody always needs $1,000 more or $500 more. Think about that when you make that final vote. Belfonte's not going anywhere. You've already given them $1 million, all the hoopla over the weekend that passed through the town for the remediation. If you're not going to require them to build the commercial, they don't need a special break for residential. Anybody in the world would take the deal. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, so, okay, just come on up.
Hello, my name is Mary Beth Maluccio, 4 Kroll Farm Road. I'm here tonight to speak on behalf of the Connecticut DEEP grant. I'm totally behind the need for the grant, and I look forward to participating in the pilot. However, the method chosen for DEEP, called co-collection, is complicated, and only one company in the state, Country Disposal in Wallingford, is permitted by DEEP to do the work. 6 months ago, our hauler agreed to apply for a permit to build its own capacity to do it, but to date, it has not been accepted by DEEP. I agree with your decision and at the last meeting that this co-collection method is not sustainable. The time and money spent on buying orange and green bags, asking residents to separate the trash from the food scraps into these bags and insert into one trash bin is a hard sell for residents. The extra step of Country Disposal separating the colored bags again and driving each of them to 2 different places is too much. It seems like a lot of man hours and diesel fuel is added to the trash hauling schedule, which makes it more expensive and less sustainable. In your last town council meeting, I was happy to hear that you're considering going in a different direction. I agree that there are better ways to achieve the goals of the grant. I followed the news regarding West Hartford's DEEP grant. Their town council was planning to move forward with that orange-green co-collection model. However, town residents familiar with the services provided by a company called Blue Earth Compost asked their town councilors to request a competitive bid from Blue Earth. The council heard them and invited Blue Earth to bid, and they won. That's how I think things should work in town, is that you get input from the community and support from the community, and I'm not on any special committee, but I'm really interested in getting this, and I did some homework myself. After I read about his bid to West Hartford, I called Sam King. He's a partner for Blue Earth Compost, and he's been so since 2020, to share the news that our town council was considering alternatives. He gladly offered to come to a town council meeting or a meeting of our Sustainable Task Force to describe in more detail how his process could work for Rocky Hill. Their process is way simpler than the co-collection. They only collect every other week, and they provide a small trash can to each residence strictly for the food scraps. It's a smaller carbon footprint. It's easier for residents to collect and to put on their curb. I think Blue Earth has done a good job for them, and I feel like I'd like to see them considered for Rocky Hill. They've been providing their services since 2013, and they are growing quickly. I hope that you will invite competitive bids for this grant, and I'm probably going to learn more later today in this meeting, and that Blue Earth would be one of those. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, moving on to appointments and resignations. Councillor Duff.
No appointments, recognitions from our caucus.
Deputy Mayor Sharmat.
No appointments or resignations.
Okay.
Report.
Approval of the minutes, Town Council meeting, February 21st, 2023. Was everyone here? Everyone was at that meeting? Okay.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes of the Town Council meeting, February 21st, 2022.
Second.
23.
All right, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, moving on to subcommittee reports, finance,
No meeting, no report.
government operations.
Government Operations met earlier today. Just a few updates with the Firehouse 3 HVAC. The rooftop unit box will be in stock here on the middle of March, and the power exhaust box will be shipped that week as well. The main unit, though, will not be shipped till later in May, and they'll also be doing some structural steel installation later in March to support the unit that eventually gets installed later this year. A couple updates on the school building. Stevens HVAC, the award for bid coming in is going to come to our finance committee during our next meeting. For the GMS roof, the bid was awarded during our last town council meeting. Work is going to be done once school ends this summer is the target. A couple of other projects going on in town in regards to Straska Farm. Plan was passed by Wetlands and Zoning. Zupik is scoping remediation for site prep for things like parking, the barn that we hope to get, and other things in the area. And they're also starting to talk about bids for the barn itself. The Center Green expansion, town officials met with Representative Wood to try to get a meeting with DOT, which has been a bit of a challenge, to determine what the next steps are as far as do you need to widen roads, relocate any stoplights, and things of that nature. Let's see, other things. The Evans Road Brownsfield Assessment Grant, they're interviewing 6 consultants this week on that project. The Century Hills Drive Sidewalk Steep Grant, Phase 1 bid documents are being prepared to be approved by DOT shortly. So, and the Raise Grant Southstein Highway Project, application has been submitted. This part is a joint program with Weathersfield to improve pedestrian areas from Parsonage all the way up Southstein as you approach the line into Hartford. It's a $600,000 potential grant, and they feel it's important because there's been more and more pedestrian traffic on the Southstein Highway, so we'll see how that progresses. And our next meeting is scheduled for, let's see, beginning of April, looks like Monday, April 3rd.
Okay, thank you. Public safety.
Madam Mayor, no meeting. Our next meeting is March 20th at 5:30.
Okay, senior liaison.
Also no meeting.
Land acquisition and farmland preservation.
No meeting. Our next meeting is March 28th at 6.
Okay, liaison to the state rep and the state senator.
No report to give.
School liaison.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Connecticut's popular statewide free school lunch program will extend through the academic year this year at the cost of $60 million under a wide-ranging bill approved a couple of weeks ago. The state will shift funding from the federal ARPA into free meals for students program. Governor said that the move will ensure that all students in Connecticut have equal access to free lunch, regardless of the socioeconomic status. However, according to the news report in CT News Junkie, the governor did not include funding for such an initiative in his budget. House Democratic leaders have said they favored a program where wealthy towns would foot some of the bill for free meals. So according to the CT Insider news story, House leaders, including Speaker of the House Matt Ritter of Hartford, Majority Leader Jason Rojas of East Hartford, and Representative Tony Walker of New Haven, said they were more inclined to consider the wealth of communities going forward to decide what school populations should be covered for free meals in cities like Bridgeport, New Haven, and Hartford. According to the CT Insider piece, the last week, legislature's Committee on Children voted to advance the Senate Bill 929, an act expanding school meals programs to provide free school meals to all students, which calls for the expanded food program to be implemented in July of this year. So that brings me to the Rocky Hill Board of Education meeting of February 16th. Assistant Superintendent for Finance and Operations, Mr. Zedegren, mentioned that the act, at this point in time, the way it is written is without any state funding. And while that's a goal that is worthy mandating that each local or regional board of education operate a school lunch and breakfast program and provide free meals to all students, without any state funding, it can be a little bit worrisome and create undue burden to school districts and the towns. According to the Assistant Superintendent, Mr. Zedegren, there are 2,500 students in Rocky Hill, 19% of which are considered eligible for free and reduced meals according to the USDA guidelines, leaving 81% that can afford to pay for meals. So without any state funding, that will leave Rocky Hill with possibly about $1 million in the hole towards this district's food service program. So the bill is set to head to the Appropriations Committee. So stay tuned. I will be reporting on that in my next report whenever that happens. And in other news, in some good news, Rocky Hill Education Foundation, I mentioned this last week, last town council meeting. Rocky Hill Education Foundation is welcoming the Harlem Wizards to Rocky Hill High School, and I'm excited to welcome them here. And the tickets are selling fast. I have been told by insider sources that they have spent hundreds of tickets. Don't want to give out the exact number here, just to keep some of my friends at the foundation happy. But they are selling fast, so grab yours quickly. And finally, happy St. Patrick's Day. That will be before our next meeting. So wishing everybody a happy St. Patrick's Day. And that's the report, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you. I hope you could top that, Alan, CIP.
Yeah, no meeting, no report.
Just
Well done. Much briefer.
And then Economic Development Subcommittee.
Also, no meeting, no report.
Alrighty. Okay, now we're going to move up Central Connecticut Health District and welcome Mr. Charlie Brown, the director of that organization. And I see that you're here with your group. So welcome, everybody.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So we're here for our annual update to our towns. I'd like to recognize our representatives to our board, Barbara Gilbert, who is our current board chair, as you can see underneath the... Marty Stiglick, who's representative as well, and then Judy Sartucci are all representing the town very well on our board. So, as I mentioned in the past, we really deal with 3 Ps in public health: prevent, promote, and protect. And we're going to hear this over and over again through this very short presentation. So general information about the health district. We are the local health department for the towns of Berlin, Newington, Rocky Hill, and Wethersfield, and we serve a combined population of about 97,000 people. We were founded in 1996, so we've had over 25 years of providing a broad range of public health services to all of our towns. CCHD is one of 20 regional health departments in the state of Connecticut. And as you can see on the slide, all the light blue, those are towns that actually are covered by health districts, by those regional entities. The yellow towns are full-time municipal departments that serve one town apiece. And then you see a little spattering of white that's gotten a lot smaller since I've been in Connecticut of the part-time health departments that are served just by very, very small health departments. General information about the district. We have our central office here in Rocky Hill, 2080 Solacene Highway. We're in Suite 100. We have 14 full-time employees, including 3 COVID-19 grant-funded positions now. Have over 50 active volunteer and lay volunteers, professional and lay volunteers that help us do a variety of things around the district. As I mentioned, our board, we have an oversight of 14 members of our Board of Health, and they're appointed from each one of our member towns. Newington has 4 board members because they're the largest of the towns. Berlin, Rocky Hill, and Wethersfield all have 3 members on our board. So this is a quick picture of our organizational chart. You can see we have 4 different divisions within the district. Our administrative in the yellow, our environmental health services in the green, the blue represents our community health services, and the red is a new division, which is our clinical health services that we're standing up now. So let's start kind of with the bottom line. We just had our audit and just came back with a clean audit from our auditor, and the numbers really represented here really kind of tell a story. So town contributions, we get about $7 per capita per person per year from each one of the towns, and we're very thankful for that because that's a large component of our budget. In addition to that, we earn program revenue. That's from licensing establishments like restaurants, food service establishments, salons, motels, pools, that actually help pay for the inspectors to be able to go out and do that work. And then we also have gotten quite a bit of money in grants. Recently, it's been through COVID grants, but we also get grants for, block grants for policy development that we actually use quite a lot of, and very little bit of interest. Expenditures are pretty much what you would expect. We don't make widgets. So our stuff is really about the professional staff that we have. So it really pays for the salaries and benefits to keep them within our district to be able to support our towns. We have a little bit of professional and contractual expenses. Our program and operating expenses have been pretty low here recently, and other expenses around $6,000. So let me talk really quickly about the difference between healthcare and public health. So people understand healthcare because they experience it every day. So the primary focus of healthcare is really on the individual. Where public health, we look at the population as a whole as what we treat. Interventions in healthcare include diagnosis and treatment of that particular illness that they're dealing with. Where public health looks at how we assess, develop policies, and assure those policies are followed in order to intervene in something that's going on. The process of healthcare really talks about the management of patient care, where public health talks about systems management, looking at the environment and how human behavior affects health of the community. The outcome, after everything's said and done with healthcare, is to return the individual to health, where in public health, we really look at trying to prevent things from happening and having a healthy community as a whole. So I'll go over each one of these bullets a little more in depth in the slides that move forward, but wouldn't it be great if we could go to the pharmacy and say, I'll take an ounce of prevention? That would make my job a lot easier. Let's start off with the elephant in the room. So as of the 3rd of March this year, we're very close to 3 years that we've been officially dealing with the COVID pandemic. Number of cases here in Rocky Hill as of the 3rd, 5,268. Unfortunately, the number of deaths that we've had in the community is at 157. And the number of tests that is staggering 97,549 have been conducted. And that's not even counting the home tests that everybody, I hope, has available. Yes?
Are you entertaining questions during the or at the end?
I'll catch them at the end. That way I can get through with this if you will indulge me. So looking at test positivity, if you can see the graph, we actually are heading in the right direction. This is from the past several months back into November, and you can see that we kind of had a little bump there during the holidays, but now we're actually starting to see a decline in positivity rates for COVID, and that's what we expect to see at this point in the pandemic. We're starting to see a shift from that pandemic into an endemic disease, something that's much more seasonal. So we still do COVID-19 response activities every single day. We continue to do vaccination of vulnerable populations, so we've done clinics that really focused on those adults that had functional needs, and on the homebound. Our nurses, including Judy Sartucci, who's here, has actually gone vaccinated folks in the home. We do daily tracking of cases for each of our member towns. We have case investigators who are volunteers who actually reach out and do health education for every positive case identified. We provide technical support to the schools, daycares, and other facilities. And we've been subject matter experts for the press, for our regulated facilities, and for residents that have questions. We provide regional supports to other local health departments as they're addressing issues. And we've distributed a lot of tests out there in the community. So we actually have free tests outside of our office that anybody can come and take. We encourage you to come and take free tests. We'll get more. We want everybody to have availability of those. Other things we do to prevent epidemics and the spread of disease. Last year we did about over 1,200 flu shots, and our average time of doing flu shots from door to door is about 3 minutes. We've been doing them by appointments, and that's been working very well. Other disease follow-ups, hepatitis A, B, and C, salmonella. We've been dealing with lead poisoning in children, and that's going to get more prevalent because the limits of lead have actually gone down by statute. So our responsibility to respond is going to increase as we move forward. Other vaccine preventable diseases and Legionella, we've actually dealt with that as well. So looking at influenza and RSV, you'll notice that on the graph we had a nice big peak there right around the holidays, and we were really concerned. But luckily we've actually seen that kind of fall off into what we would see as a kind of a seasonal curve, and we actually are seeing very few cases now for both influenza and RSV. So hopefully if everybody keeps doing the right thing, we'll be done with flu for another season. Other epidemics that we deal with, I think, are coming up. So the mosquito and tick-borne diseases. So we've had a very mild winter so far. And ticks and mosquitoes carry a variety of different diseases like Eastern equine encephalitis, West Nile virus. We've seen Zika from people that travel, Lyme disease, ehrlichiosis, and babesiosis. So this graph was prepared by one of our epidemiologists, and it actually shows some interesting information. So this is about tick-borne diseases and the number of cases that we see in the average monthly temperature. So that nice rise and fall that you see there on the line, if you see like the second valley is a little higher on the blue line, and then towards the end over to the right, you'll see that the line is up a little bit from where the light blue is. Now both of those winters had a higher temperature than average. And what we see following that is both more cases of Lyme disease, more cases of babesiosis, and now in the last year, in 22, we've seen cases of ehrlichiosis. And what we surmise from that is that there's more people that are interacting with these ticks, and that we're seeing a variety of ticks, not just the traditional deer ticks that carry Lyme disease. So we have other ticks that are able to live through winters because they're not as cold. Other things that we've been dealing with are response to the opioid crisis. We've really been the convener of the local response agencies in all of our towns, primarily social services and the police departments. We currently have work groups that address prevention, response, and recovery. And we were just awarded a grant renewal for the Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services to work with people suffering from addiction and their families. Every day, we're out there doing inspections. And our inspectors are actually, in the last year, have done close to 1,000 food service inspections among our 4 towns. We do septic inspections, pools, motels, salon inspections to assure that they're safely operating for all of our residents. In addition to those inspections, we also get a number of complaints. Primarily, those complaints are housing and property maintenance issues but other things like hoarding, food-related complaints, rodents, insects, garbage, air and water pollution, and we get complaints about motels as well that we deal with. One of the things that we do to protect against environmental hazards is our Putting on Airs program. Now, this is an asthma management program where we have teams of individuals, of inspectors that go in, they do a home inspection to really identify where triggers could be for children, and they take a team approach that really highlights that trigger in the environment and then the proper use of medication. A lot of times when somebody goes to the emergency room for an asthma attack, they don't have a lot of time to explain how to use a rescue inhaler or how their medication is supposed to be managed. Asthma health educators take the time to make that asthma management plan and really get the folks to follow it. In addition, we do radon kit distribution, and we do a lot of lead poisoning prevention as well. Here I have to congratulate you. Last year, Rocky Hill swept our four-town walking competition. Everything you could do, you did. So you got our High Stepper Trophy, which I hope you're displaying proudly. And you also won the Impact Award for the highest participation in 2022. So congratulations to everybody in Rocky Hill. Y'all did great. But I will warn you, there's a target. The other towns are coming for you, so you can't let up. So we're starting our walking competition here in May. So get your walking shoes ready and get out there and get active. Other things we do to respond to disasters and assist our communities in recovery is emergency preparedness planning. So we do our mass flu clinics every October. And you may think that the only reason is to prevent flu, but actually we use those to test our preparedness plans, to be able to train our nurses, make sure that everything flows right. And we also do flooding and other natural disasters. We plan with emergency management every year. So as we look to the future, we've done a lot around administrative and health policies. I know for the past several years I've been talking about the FDA code and it's coming. Guess what? It landed February 16th. So as of February 16th, our inspectors are able to enforce the FDA food code versus what was here in place in Connecticut before that. So we're going to be working with all of our regulated facilities about how that changes the inspections and how we can work together to make sure that everything's working just the way that it's supposed to. In addition, we did a sanitary code revision here in the past year to address other things like our motel regulations and things along those lines. I want to thank everyone who participated in our community perception survey. We're in the process of finishing up our community health assessment and our improvement planning, and we'll be engaging you in hopefully some community conversations as a result of that. My last two words are thank you. Thank you for allowing us to serve as your local health department, and I stand ready to answer any questions.
Thank you, Charlie.
Thanks, John.
Yeah.
That's fast talking for a Southerner, let me tell you.
But jumping back to the COVID presentation.
Yes.
At the onset of that, contact tracing was the one of the big tools that we were trying to lean on, but I don't think it worked all that well. And I don't see it being carried forward much. Is the contact tracing still a viable tool? And has the state corrected their computer software program?
No, the program's still in place, and actually they've shifted from it's more of a nomenclature change. So we're doing less contact tracing and more case investigation. But the principles still work. So trying to be able to get to the individuals that are affected by this that test positive, give them the information so that they can isolate or quarantine effectively within their family so that they don't spread this any farther. That's really what we're doing every day.
Okay.
Can you just talk about vaccinations and people who have had COVID, what their protection is going forward? We've heard various kind of news reports that, hey, if you've had all three shots, you're kind of protected for a while, so maybe provide some clarity on that whole topic.
Yeah, vaccinations are a tough deal because we're dealing with an enemy that changes constantly. So we've seen a lot of different variations, and viruses have that tendency to mutate. So they're looking for that opportunity to be able to get around the protections that we put in place. Our vaccinations currently, with if people are up to date and have had their boosters, really are matching up pretty well with the Omicron virus. We've seen some changes with the XBB 1.5 variant that's just out right now that's becoming prevalent. And what we're probably going to see is moving to more of a seasonal vaccination to address those changes.
It's going to be kind of like flu shots. Or
Going to be like the flu shot. So what we're seeing in the future is probably going to be around the time where respiratory diseases hit, right around before the holidays in that October-November timeframe. We're probably going to be doing big clinics and probably trying to get people out to get that booster.
Do you envision a time where there's going to be a combination flu and COVID shot?
It's possible. It is possible because you can do the vaccination at the same time. So you can get both shots at the same day, and there's has been very little adverse effects from that.
Okay, thank you.
Just have a couple. Just in terms of the COVID rates going down, it's good to see you in person, by the way. It's been a while.
It has been a while, Chris.
No germ tie anymore. When should people mask? Should they mask? And what should people do if they do come down with COVID?
So there's been a shift to a lot more personal responsibility for understanding kind of what's going on in your community. And CDC has done, I think, a very good job in compiling a lot of the risk factors that are involved. So currently they have kind of a green, yellow, red, or orange type of scenario where they go county by county. And currently, the reason I'm standing here in front of you today is that Hartford County, for the first time in a long time, is actually in the green. So you can actually relax a little bit. You have to look at your individual risk factors. So, when you should wear a mask, when you should quarantine and isolate. At this point, if you're asymptomatic and you haven't been exposed to your knowledge, you can go about your business. But you should consider wearing a mask if you're in a large group. I've said before at the beginning of the pandemic that this will probably make mask wearing a lot more socially acceptable. People can wear a mask now and you don't think twice about it. So using that as one of the tools, if you're potentially exposed or might be, say, immunized, compromised, immune compromised, that's a tool at your disposal.
And if with travel starting to open up, if people are flying, airports, masks.
I would definitely recommend it.
I noticed in your presentation you mentioned that, and we don't need to bring the screen back down, but I thought I saw something saying that there is 3 COVID grant-funded positions. Mm-hmm. We're starting to now see the tail end of some of those grants locally. Do you know if those are going to be, or when the funding for those grants runs out for those positions? Is that something that we should plan to potentially budget for in the future as a district?
You are taking the words right out of my head. Yes, we actually, those positions right now are currently running through a grant called the Expanding Laboratory Capacity Grant 2, is running through 2024, all the way through that. So those positions are funded at that point. The 3 positions that we have that are funding primarily through those are our epidemiologist that really has done an exceptional job in the information that we're able to provide each of our towns. Our public health nurse is funded under that, and our health educator. So we are going to be looking at either various ways of either the grants or trying to be able to develop the funding to be able to support those positions in the future, because we really consider those foundational services that we provide.
Thanks. And my last question is that in terms of public health, we've been talking a lot about physical public health, germs, things that impact that. Mm-hmm. There's also, I think, a growing awareness of public mental health. Oh, I guess you did have addiction in there. Mm-hmm. There's really a problem with younger kids, teenagers, especially what they pick up through TikTok and all this stuff that probably, I'm an old guy, probably stuff that I don't even know about out there. But I've been hearing about programs, particularly in England, where they're actually bringing people in to help deprogramming kids who've been getting radicalized by guys like Andrew Tate and all these kind of negative forces that can be really change how kids think very quickly when it gets them, because they know how to market to impressionable kids. Mm-hmm. Is that type of online I guess, deprogramming, for lack of a better word, something that the health district might partner with the schools? It's something that there's any new research on? It's kind of a new front.
Yeah,
But
it's a new front, and I think public mental health is really something that a lot of people in public health are grappling with right now, as far as where we fit in the structure. We work very closely with social services in all 4 of our towns and addressing, the needs that are there. And I think that, as we've realized through the opioid crisis, mental health is one of the contributing factors towards substance use. So where public health fits in the future, I think, is something that we're absolutely going to tie into, work with our partners nationally, like the National Association of City and County Health Officials and CDC, to really figure out where we fit in that.
thanks.
So Charlie, just piggybacking on what Chris was saying, just from a broader perspective, how has your mission changed or being impacted, or your day-to-day, how about how you think about public health now? Talking about mental health and other things, like, they're thrown in the mix over the last 3 years. Let's say, like, if you were to compare your work, what you were doing day to day, and the bigger picture, right, from a mission standpoint, in before March of 2020 versus March of 2023, how has your thinking evolved, or if it has, right?
Well,
And if it hasn't, that's fine too. But yeah, I mean, I just wanted to like take a peek into like how you are thinking about things and how that has evolved over a period of time.
that's a big question. But I don't think that we could go through what we've gone through in the last 3 years without changing our perspectives. And really one of the things that we've learned is that having, some of the positions that we have now, like I mentioned, the epidemiologist and the public health nurse, are really critical to how we would respond in the future. I mean, the fact that we didn't have those positions for so long really impacted at the beginning of this, really how effective we could be. We could have probably been much more effective. I'm proud of the response that we made, but I think that having those types of foundational positions, at the local level really does make an impact for what we do on an everyday basis. I wouldn't know, for example, the tick-borne diseases and the cross between the temperatures. I wouldn't have the bandwidth to be able to get that type of information and provide it to you. We're actually looking at partnering with the Connecticut Agricultural Extension Station to do seminars on tick-borne prevention now because we know that data. So changing in my perspective, I think we've always really considered health in all policies as our approach. That transportation policy is a health policy, so the complete streets becomes important within each of our towns. So I think that's been consistent as we've gone through. I think the changes specifically is that a lot of y'all know about us now. So our mission, I think, has become much more publicly aware. So we're actually able to do things and connect with partners much more easily now. And, people understand that we're a first responder, like police, like fire. Just our response is a little bit more drug out. When the smoke goes away, we're still there, and we're still operating in those emergencies.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I'm going to skedaddle.
You should. We encourage all of you to skedaddle. Thank you. Very informative, and we appreciate all your hard work. All right, we're going to move up to the consent agenda. Authorization to execute financial assistance agreement, DECD Brownfield Grant for the remediation and abatement of 2418 Main Street, former Ames property.
Make a motion to approve consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Moving on to old business, discussion, possible action, American Rescue Plan, ARP funding options.
Nothing. No.
I'm just going to ask a question about it. Our ARP funds are available for, one of the categories is the arts. That was mentioned early on. I guess I'm asking Mona.
Yes.
Marching band need a couple of
We
Throw
may
a
want,
plug in
we
for
may
our
want to
for
think
our
about we
marching
do
band.
that.
Our award-winning marching
Shameless.
I know.
band. Shameless.
Okay. Moving on to B, discussion, Connecticut Deep Grant, Joe Lentini, Field Operations / Highway Superintendent / Recycling Coordinator. A man of all trades, Mr. Lentini.
Just a quick intro. We had asked Joe to come in and kind of give us a broad view of what he's been working on regarding the DEEP grant and the different alternatives that we've been mentioning every now and then at this meeting. So we've asked Joe to come in and maybe give us a little bit more detail, and maybe he can guide us in the right direction.
Thanks. And that was good information. Carol, you said? Mary Beth, sorry about that. Yeah, so that was some good stuff that you brought up. I have sat down with our trash hauler, with our trash receiver. We have had just a couple of communications. It's been a busy winter, so we had one good meeting just a couple weeks ago I had with the trash hauler, Peter Lombardo, about some of the logistics, like location of where we might establish our program to pick up the scraps and how we're going to implement that program. Not through, hopefully, the bag that DEEP has. We're trying to figure out a different avenue, something that would be better for the resident, for the homeowner, that would be more convenient. So we're developing and strategizing some ideas and plans and trying to put all that together. Hopefully, we find a good location in town where we're not spending a lot of fuel, not spending a lot of time, but we're getting the right amount of units where we can make a difference in the tonnage. That's where we're at right now.
So essentially, when you say when you're looking at the area that you're going to target, right? It's for purposes of collecting that data.
Yes.
For the state, right? Because I think that's really what it's all about at this point, is collecting the data for the state. And I think a lot, like if you look at a lot of the bills that have come out, and if you look at what CROG is doing, so CROG actually has a study for anyone who's interested. They are looking into this whole issue, and they're going to come out with solutions. Probably the solutions are going to be what we're already looking at. But I think everyone has sort of taken a step back and recognized that the infrastructure isn't really there to carry out a lot of these really great concepts. And to that end, there's actually a bill that, and I don't mean to steal your thunder, but there's something that we should be cognizant about where the governor and DEEP are advocating to add to our tipping fee. I think it's something like $5 to the tipping fee just so they can start to build the infrastructure so that we can do these programs. So I think it is really important. I want to thank you, Joe, for getting involved in this effort, because I think we do have to scale back what we're doing so that it is something that ends up being sustainable if we get folks actually engaged. So,
yeah.
Sorry.
Thank you for helping me.
No, that's just my 2 cents.
Thanks. Just a question, Joe. So my recollection is that Meriden, I think, was one of the first towns that implemented something like this going back to last summer or so. So we've got, some months where this type of program was actually implemented. Any lessons from that? I mean, is there anything that happened there, or any other towns that have actually done this for a while that have kind of caused this sort of, second look at what works and what doesn't?
we're unable to receive any data that was established or what they have. We haven't gotten the exact numbers on, the tonnage.
Even anecdotally, though, as far, because the original concept, or one of the concepts was the two-bag concept, now it looks like kind of stepping back from that. Is that based on observations from Meriden or some of the other towns that just wasn't working? Or I just like some sense, that was a pilot that we were all supposed to learn from, and even if you don't have any big data, do you at least have just some senses of, any lessons learned?
I guess I don't want to make any opinions or statements. I have communicated with some people, but I don't want to. I don't think that it went that well with the bag and the separations. In other words, when you put 10 ton in a truck and you have black, white, yellow, orange bags, and that 10 ton is compacted, and then you go drop it at a facility, put it on the floor, and now you have to find a way to separate it. And there were some difficulties. I think there's still some growing pains right now. And I know Middletown, because I just communicated with them, they're actually finding better ways, and they're working avenues to make it better, because they're doing the bag program, the orange, green, and different colors. So,
And how about at the individual household level, as far as getting buy-in and figuring out what works for people, in their kitchen?
I think that's part of what my strategy needs to be and what I need to implement. And obviously, communication is going to be huge with that. Maybe survey, maybe questionnaire, reach out to these residents before we start this program, make sure that they're interested. That's number one, and make sure that I don't find 400 houses that have garbage disposals, because, I'm not going to get much waste. So we're going to have to do some surveys, do some questionnaires, reach out, and then, start to implement that program where we can, develop our units and pick up. I know USA, where we bring our trash, they're also working with DEP to help. I mean, the original concept with this in 2016 was compost, reduce the footprint for the food waste, but compost. And like the mayor said, they're one step, I guess, behind right now, and we got to find that right program. We're looking at other avenues, and they're helping. And hopefully, when time comes, in a few months, we might have something.
Joe, can you kind of mention what we're kind of looking at right now? What was mentioned earlier? The 2 runs perhaps in a test area?
Yeah, so we also, what I would like to do is have a separate unit, another barrel at your residence for you to put the food scraps in. That's how I'm thinking. So you compost at your home on your counter, and when that little bin gets full, you put it in a bag and then bring it to your barrel out in the garage or in the curb, and then pick that up separately. And then we're going to bring it to a facility that we're trying to arrange right now. So it would be just the food, not the barrel. Your barrel that you have right now for MSW, we do a base for a couple months, find out what you're dumping on the tonnage, and then we hand out the barrel. It's a separate barrel, it's a smaller barrel, and you utilize that, whether it's once a week or twice a week. Those are all the logistics we have to work out. But, in July, I don't think anybody wants food waste in their container for a month.
Now you're talking 3 barrels per household.
Yeah, for this run, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Is that test?
Yeah, and just to
They don't know it's a test.
just to be clear, I guess what we're looking at, it sounds like we're looking at still doing a pilot within a town, learn from how we can, how well that goes before something goes out to the full town.
I would think that would be the best benefit for the town.
And is that something where, maybe it depends on the town. Some people already compost. I've got my compost pile in the yard. You're not going to probably learn much from my garbage, other than how much I go to Amazon. No one root through, please. It's not an invitation.
You are what you eat.
Yeah. But is there anything about different higher density parts of town that you're looking at, or anything that, like, what's a good part of town that you'd want to study?
So strategically, I have to work with our hauler, and, like, we know, and we're putting maps together right now. This is everything that I'm working on right now. And we're designing where that could be. And I don't have an exact location yet because we're working, I have the 5 days that we pick up. So we're going through each district and figuring out what would be best for the trash hauler. We don't want to spend a lot on fuel. We don't want to spend a lot of time. We want to be able to get in a good area, collect, and then get to the facility and dump. So that's all part of it. Me finding that number and plus working the number of units, what's going to be a good number for us to get this a good average for pilot.
And then the last part was that, are we looking strictly residential, or is there possibility for our sites, like, for example, the schools that have, I'm sure, a decent bit of food waste unless they're already composting, is there a way to reduce our municipal footprint or potentially open up to, as a pilot, maybe an apartment complex they could piggyback, cost shares, anything like that we could?
We are looking into the entire town, businesses, DOE, all the town buildings, condos, apartments. The whole gamut. We have everything.
Cool. Thank you.
Yep.
How you doing? Quick question. Don't mean to oversimplify this, because it's not a simple solution here. But when I look at this holistically, I see three parts. There's a collection at the home, and there's a separation at the home. Then there's a delivery and storage, possibly, and then there's the recycling aspect of it. 3 different workflows, 3 different solutions, and it's in totality. Have we talked about, and most likely there has been conversations around the separation in the home? I know you just brought up a 3rd barrel.
Right.
But have we talked about even one step prior to that? And I'll give you an example. A personal example. My biggest challenge is to go from the point of, okay, I have this material that I've got to do something with. Do I go to my trash barrel, or do I go to the sink for the disposal there, or do I just go straight out to the outside of the garage and dump it there? My challenge is going out to the garage because I've kind of pushed the family to do that a little bit. So I guess my question is, are we doing anything to maybe help solutioning inside the house so that, for example, I don't know if it's even an idea or not, but let's say, 3-part trash can, just give it to the folks in the home, and just that way it's already there. So in your busy day, you're automatically already know what to do with that piece of material versus, oh, I got to go all the way outside to put it out there, right? And I think that's kind of the intake, and it kind of starts there to really have the organization. But again, I just wonder if anyone's thought through that piece of it.
Yeah. So on at the bigger spectrum of all that, and having 21,000 residents from Rocky Hill doing the food scrapping. But I mean, right now, I need to concentrate on the number that we're thinking, and then it might only be 400. Or I'm just throwing out numbers right now. I don't know what the number is going to be, but and educate and work with them to say, and it's going to be difficult. It's not going to be. This is an easy process. I mean, when you're cutting vegetables in the kitchen, you're just getting stuff out of your way because you need to cook and clean. So all that's got to be worked. That needs to be educated. That we need your help. This is going to be. It's going to be a project.
Yeah, it's definitely. They call it in our IT world, user experience.
Yeah. Right.
It's how do you manage that situation right then and there? And I think,
there's avenues. There's been ideas floated. I don't want to throw anything out right now because we're still, pounding it with a hammer. But I think we can get this to work. This compost thing.
Part of the grant money is education. Public education on recycling and how to do it, and getting people involved. So definitely a priority.
Absolutely.
Are they educating based on a solution on how we're doing this at the home? Like literally before you even walk out to the garage?
Yeah, so I can speak to that a little bit. So there's that CT, what is the app that I'm always talking about? The one where you can throw, it's the trash app, I don't know, I'll look it up. But there's this app and you just literally go on and say, where do I put this, right? And it tells you where to put it. They have a website, and there's towns who are already starting to engage in this process, so we can easily learn from them. And it's really cool to watch it on social media because some of them will have, a weekend at the library where residents can go. They can pick up a little plastic bin. So Joe talks about one that you can put on your counter. Some people may opt to put one under their sink or wherever their garbage happens to be. And then they have these programs at the library, right? And you can go learn about it. And it's not going to be, I don't know, you mentioned 400. I don't know ultimately how many people initially will participate, right? What number he's thinking about, but I don't think it's too big of a number that we can't really educate all of those households, for a while and show them, all right, these are your buckets, this is the process. And I think if we get the children involved, we will have the most success, right? Because they'll be eager, and then they'll want their parents to do it, and we can create challenges in that regard.
Madam Mayor, is that called Recycle CT?
It is called Recycle CT.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Any other questions? No. Perfect. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Do you have a timeline when you're going to come back?
Once I finish the budget, then
Okay. All right, we'll give you that. Thank you. Okay, discussion possible action. We're going to table Kelson Row Ames request for a tax abatement tabled from 2/6/23 has been tabled again to tomorrow. Moving on to the mayor's report. So, who brought up the bill? Councilor Prakash brought up the bill about
Right.
food. So just a couple more bills to be aware of. We were collecting money because last year there was this great initiative to reimburse our volunteer firefighters for the calls that they have when they go up on the highway. And that's been very beneficial because our firefighters spend a lot of time, almost daily, going up onto the highway, responding to motor vehicle accidents or whatever, maybe debris in the road. And it's a pull on our resources. It's a pull on the use of their equipment, wear and tear. And also it requires us to have mutual aid covering for us. So when we were able to bill to get reimbursed, it was very helpful because a lot of that money, I think, goes into training, right? So it was brought to our attention that that program is still part of the governor's new budget, but it's not funded. And it's become a concern. So it's something that we want to stay on top of because that's a good alternative source of revenue for us, and it does help tremendously, and that's why it was enacted in the first instance, so we don't want to see that go away. The last meeting, I joked that I had a letter to send to the governor and that I pulled it off the table and didn't share it with you because I was told that we were going to get reimbursed for our lost revenue that resulted from when he capped the mill rate on motor vehicles, then that affected car taxes. So last year, when that happened, our lost revenue was about $130,000. And we tried to collect it, and OPM was not able to give it to us. And so we were relying on this year to hopefully recoup that loss. And obviously, it affected the budget at that time. Nevertheless, we were told that we would see it this year. And it, again, is one of those things where it appears in the governor's budget, and it's actually a number there. So the number is there, but I was told by member of our state delegation that the governor is not going to fund it. And what's concerning is that my understanding is a number of cities received funding last year for their revenue losses, and we didn't, and I don't know how many other smaller towns didn't. But now it's really concerning because it sounds like this is going to be an ongoing issue, and in particular because there are so many bills out there to eliminate the car tax altogether. And it is a significant chunk of money that we rely upon, and I don't think that we can rely upon, I don't want to say the governor, but any state agency to reimburse us once they eliminate the car tax altogether, only because we are seeing right now that they're not reimbursing us. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to find that letter. I'm going to, update a little bit, and then I'm going to put it on the next agenda and see what you guys think. I will control the tenor of it. And perhaps we can send that off, because I feel if we don't start talking about it now, there's just too many bills out there and so much support behind it. And I don't think they recognize that we aren't getting reimbursed to begin with. So to rely on, legislation that completely eliminates this is probably not in our best interest. Happy Women's History Month. Ta-da! We are very excited about that. If you know any women, or if you are a woman who owns your own business, please give me a call or email me. We have a little initiative I want to do this month. So again, if you are a female entrepreneur, or if you know a female entrepreneur here in Rocky Hill, please let me know. The Fire Department Awards Night and Association Member Appreciation Dinner was recently. I think most of the town council was there to recognize all of our incredible volunteers and all of the hard work that they do. So we just want to congratulate all of the award recipients and say thank you. Super excited to announce that this year's Taste of Ramadan will be hosted in Rocky Hill. So registration is open. You can visit the Muslim Coalition of Connecticut. It's really this fascinating, informative annual dinner where you go and, families just talk about growing up Muslim here in the States, and the kids and what it's like going to college and going to school and trying, just to honor their traditions and culture and still, have to be part of, everyone else's traditions and cultures.
And it has some great food, if I may add.
Food is...
It's fabulous.
Food is fabulous. True. So, yeah, you can sign up for that. It's this month. You can go to Muslim Coalition of Connecticut. Hopefully there's some seats still available, but it will be here in Rocky Hill at the center downstairs. So Rocky Hill Youth Services is looking for motivated teen volunteers to join the Rocky Hill Teen Council. So it's a great opportunity for our kiddos who want to become leaders and make an impact. It's only a quarterly meeting, which those meetings are held in Town Hall on Thursdays from 3 to 4:30. So you can sign up if you're interested with Rocky Hill Youth Services. Last week was Read Across America Week, and the town manager and I, along with a lot of staff, were able to get into the schools, and we had a lot of fun reading to the little kiddos. I think, Ray, you read to preschoolers, right?
It was quite traumatic for me.
He had to read One Fish, Two Fish, Red Fish, Blue Fish, or whatever it's called. He was a little tongue twisted. But yeah, it was real. And I got these books that I had never seen before. It was like completely, it wasn't Dr. Seuss. It was all different, different genres. And I was a little tongue twisted too, trying to read the kindergarten books, I'm going to be honest. But it was lots of fun. And then two more things. One, we're going to pull up something on the screen, and there it is. So there's going to be a blood drive on Thursday, April 13th at St. James from 1 to 6. It is in memory of Andrew Sorrentino, who passed away at a very young age back in 2018 after a valiant 2-year battle with leukemia. So the blood drives, as you know, benefit so many people, and please mark your calendars if you can come out and give blood, and please spread the word. That's also on the mayor's Facebook page. You can share that, you can print it, whatever you like to do. So thank you for that. And then finally, a big shout out to our 7th grade travel basketball team, who over the weekend became these, great champions. And so we're super excited for them. Congratulations, boys. And I will turn it over to you, Town Manager.
Referring to my memo of March 6, 2013, I'm going to jump all the way down to the bottom, to the Dr. Seuss. We already mentioned that, and it's fresh in our minds. Yeah, I have not read that book in 30 years. And it really was traumatic. And I got through it. It was much longer than I thought. The kids were great.
Longer than you remember?
Can you tell us what you learned?
I learned that I can actually read and speak. Fairly,
And point to the pictures while you're doing it. Right?
But yeah, I'll do it again. It was fun. It was fun. All right, back up to code enforcement software. The fire marshal had approached me with this idea of if we could possibly implement this fire code inspection software called the Compliance Engine. It's web-based, it's free to the town, it's funded by fees paid by contractors. And it's basically a software program to track inspections, compliance inspections, and the like. All we have to do is provide the database information, which the fire marshal's office will be working on soon. So that'll be a tremendous help for the fire marshal and the assistant fire marshal. I've been working with our finance director, meeting with department directors. We met with all of them, going over their budget proposals. And we are now, we being Mona and I, are now going through those proposals and honing them in preparation of the end of March for presentation. Planning and zoning appeal, that should be really a appeal from the wetland permit denial. They're appealing the approval, the denial of the Open Space Conservation Commission of the Bessel multifamily affordable housing on Main Street. They'll be going to planning and zoning under the 830G. They have the opportunity to kind of negotiate kind of a different proposal with the commission before going to court. And then hotel tax legislation bill. I thought that might be worth mentioning because it's actually legislation that has a positive impact on the town. And if that did actually get approved in its current form, I think with 666 hotel rooms in Rocky Hill would be quite a revenue source that would help us tremendously. And that is the end.
Okay, thank you. Is executive session?
Yes.
Okay.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to move to executive session pursuant to CGS Section 1-202, discussion concerning collective bargaining strategy regarding International Union of Operating Engineers with the town manager, Director of Human Resources and Legal Compliance, and Director of Finance and Operations.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.